Welcome back, TCS viewers. It's Christopher's here from the camera store. We're hanging out here near the train station because we got a cool new piece of technology. As usual, we got it early. The Panasonic GH4 has a brand new firmware upgrade, but right now our very own Levi Holwell is up here in the Snalta train station dodging peace officers and trying to make a music video for TCSTV here as well. You know, as a good test ground to try out anamorphic lenses on this updated GH4 platform. Now, when it comes to vlog on the GH4, we're going to get much better highlight roll-off. I mean, highlights are going to look much nicer. We can recover them much better. We're getting a very flat profile, way flatter than Cine D, which was the previous flat profile for the GH4. Now, the other big change that we're going to get on the Panasonic GH4 is now the ability to have an anamorphic mode. Now, keep in mind, people were shooting anamorphic lenses on the GH4 before in the photo 4K mode, but this makes it way easier and way more straightforward. Now, we've got our hands on some Russian anamorphic lenses. We're going to try those out here tonight for the music video. And what this is basically going to do is give us that nice cinescope look, that very beautiful wide frame. But again, remember, it does more than that. Anamorphic lets us use the verticality of this 4:3 sensor. We're going to capture more detail, we're going to use more pixel information, and then we're going to use the software afterwards to take this squished in, but very highly detailed shot, stretch it out, and get our nice panoramic view. Now, of course, this does some other cool things. I'm sure you're going to see some cool flares with highlights, J.J. Abrams style. And this is primarily what we're going to talk about with Levi tonight, how this is working for his music video and what it's going to bring to the table creatively. Okay, so Levi, you are the first person to use our GH4 here with
Yes.
The new additions, the Vlog and the Anamorphic. So first off, Vlog, how is it changing things for you?
It's changing things a lot. I've been using the GH4 now for a year almost, which is crazy to think about that this camera's been out for that long. And finally, we're getting a log profile. So they took their time. People have been wanting it. But I can honestly say they delivered. It's very helpful.
Let me ask you this. What did you think about Cine D? Because I know some people did like it. You know, it's not bad. Some people were kind of against it.
I mean, it was okay. The problem is when you compare it to the Sony A7S, we've been putting those two on the counter for almost a year now, saying these are the two ones to look at. Yeah. Sony always had the log profile, and that was big. So Cine D, you know, the highlights were pretty rough. The histograms, you could lose it to the right pretty easily. Okay. And it's been remarkable how much extra room is there with Vlog now.
Very cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
It's very interesting.
Okay, so now let's talk about anamorphic. I mean, something they've added on the GH4. This is your first time using anamorphic lenses?
Yeah, this is the first time.
Is your music video in focus, Levi?
These are things that, upon the release of this video, we'll find out.
I suppose so,
We
yeah.
haven't wrapped yet. We're still on location. I think I've gotten it throughout the day, but it's going to be probably one of the more nerve-wracking, you know, reviews of the footage we shot, so I'll tell you that
Okay,
much.
I mean, the GH4 is not going to give you a corrected, so to speak, frame, right? You're looking at everything squished. Are you finding that difficult?
Not so much, honestly. I mean, so you're shooting in a 4:3 ratio now with this new anamorphic mode.
Full use of the sensor, which is the whole point.
Which is nice. And so, I mean, it's not like, you know, when you were cheating before in letterboxing, let's say, there were things that were getting cut out of your frame. Right. But here, what you see is what you get. So if something is in your shot here, it's going to end up in your shot. So everything's a little bit elongated. Honestly, I find just using the log profile harder to see the final image more so than anamorphic.
That's interesting, just because it's so flat.
It is so flat. So you really have to just eyeball things at that point, you know? You got to get away from the practice of seeing if it looks good on the screen, because it looks terrible.
What about the lens flare? You breaking at the lens flare?
The lens flare, I used to think J.J. Abrams was indulgent on Star Trek, but no, he needed more.
Okay, so you've been using the GH4 for a while. Last question. You shot heights with it. Now with these new updates, how does it change things for you?
I mean, it's a pretty big improvement for sure. It's definitely something to be considered, and people who were on the fence before, this could be the final factor for them making their decision. I mean, the low light is just the last thing stopping it. I mean, and the A7S is always going to have that. But I mean, you get better skin tones, better highlight roll off. It's just a more flattering image. So really, if you're lighting your stuff and you want 4K, there's just not a lot holding you back.
That's very cool.
It's a nice addition.
Very cool. All right, we'll let you get back to your video, and we'll cut in with Jordon later. Thank you. All right, guys, welcome back. It's Chris and Jordon here. And Jordon, we're going to have a discussion about the GH4, this new firmware upgrade, and what it does for us. Now, Levi shot his music video. We got a lot of cool footage. Check it out here.
Yeah, you can actually see it right there. It will be clickable at left side pictures.
Absolutely.
Should be up in a couple days if it's not already. But I was really impressed looking at the files. He brought those guys back in, and I mean the Vlog, it's now Vlog L. I know it's not final, not going to be released quite yet.
We don't know when it's coming out. We got an early pre-production model. They were really nice to get us that. And from when we tested, it's fantastic. I mean, it's not going to get any worse. It was
That's the great
to
thing.
use.
If it comes out exactly as it is now, it's still a beautiful profile. The major issues that I had with the Cine D profile, which were sometimes waxy skin tones,
you did complain
highlight
about
roll-off could be really harsh on it. Both of those are totally addressed by this.
Yeah, this Vlog is very, very similar to S-Log that we would see on the A7S. Now, of course, you got to remember that we're shooting this stuff, even from S-Log 2 to S-Log 3, you had to expose differently.
Yep.
And, you know, the beginner, using these log files for the first time, they're going to find, wow, it looks so flat, so gray, so monotone.
Either you want to have some experience or you've got to have some time to really learn to work with log files, because it is definitely a bit of a learning process. You may find if you play with that for the first time too, there's a ton of detail in the shadows, but the bottom layers of it, the deepest shadows, are very noisy. And that's always the case with a log file. You can choose whether or not you want to use that information, but don't be surprised if you do see it.
Now the GH4, I mean, yeah, if it had a weakness, especially now with these upgrades, it's so good. So if it had a weakness, still a little light performance. That's why the A7S is still going to be doing so well for that market. But really, this makes the GH4 very competitive. This is what it needed.
It's very flexible. When I was shooting when there was a lot of light, I find often those are very high contrast scenes. So it's great to have that log that addresses that need. And I actually really like the lower ISO in a lot of cases. If it's a lit shot like we're in right now, you're not, I mean, indoors I've had to pile ND filters on the A7S, and that's not the case with this.
Right.
Which is really nice, makes your life a lot easier if you're outside. You're spending less money on ND filters.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, the S-Log on the A7S, you've got to just cram NDs on there, dark NDs if you're using any sort of bright light.
Yeah, so the GH4 still isn't a low light camera, but this makes it a world more flexible.
You know what's so great about this now is we've got a company like Panasonic coming out with great firmware updates that the camera sorely needs. Sony's been doing a great job. Fuji's been doing a great job. We're seeing a lot of these firmware
there's
updates.
like this culture of firmware support now. And it's amazing the GH4 came out a year ago at this point, and we're seeing not small bug fixes, but major updates in the features.
Now, if you are a photographer shooting stills on a GH4,
a lot of those,
you will like the 1/16,000th of a second electronic shutter, but of course, nobody's going to do that.
Yeah, so going back to the stuff that actually matters for the people using GH4s, the 2x Anamorphic mode is really sweet. You know, I thought that was kind of a little extra feature, but looking at the footage from it, because we played around with a 1.3
with the Anamorphic,
a 1.3, and it had a bit of that look, but looking at, you know, a true 2x Anamorphic, using those real lenses, it is a completely different aesthetic. It's gorgeous.
I mean, sure, you're not going to get the actual scope view on the viewfinder. I mean, everything's squished, but you know, you get used to that.
That's the major struggle with it. You know, it would be great if the camera supported unsqueezing. The nice thing is, it's very easy for someone to do with an external monitor. You know, if you're renting anamorphic lenses, let's be honest, you can probably throw a Shogun in the budget.
I mean, this is the thing, and that's really touching on one of the main benefits here. You know, you got to remember, GH4 is already affordable as it is. Now we can get anamorphic lenses for it, and I know they're expensive, but you got to think now with cameras like this pioneering the way, other companies are going to come out with purpose-built anamorphic lenses for this camera.
I would expect, some budget anamorphics. Now that the point of entry, you know, it's not like you need an Alexa XT anymore to shoot anamorphic. People are going to see that need. They're going to fill it with some budget anamorphic lenses.
We're going to get away from these crazy expensive dollars to rent all this anamorphic gear and start getting approachable budgetary means and be able to cover this stuff on these small cameras. And if the GH4 is doing it, that means that maybe Sony will do it, maybe Canon, well, Canon won't, but maybe Sony will do it. You know, but we're going to hopefully start to see other companies coming out with this. It could be the start of a very interesting revolution.
Yeah. One other nice thing too, until that time hits, a 2x Anamorphic is also coming from SLR Magic. And adapters are a pain, you've got to focus twice, but it does mean if you like the look of the 2x footage we shot, you can get something very close for a pretty reasonable budget. And I'm certainly going to do it.
I mean, NAB's coming up, you know, Cinegear's coming up. I'm sure we'll see companies starting to jump on this bandwagon.
Yeah, in conclusion, I would have to say this is probably one of the biggest firmware upgrades we've seen, especially if you are looking at it primarily as a video camera. This makes it so much more useful. I've loved working with the Vlog. The Anamorphic, I'd never pushed anamorphic footage through proper 2x anamorphic. I love it. I really want to shoot some more stuff that way.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think if you've got a GH4, get excited. We're going to see the anamorphic.
Not just a minor upgrade, we're getting a big change here. Sorry, Cine Like D. We'll see you guys soon. Remember, check us out on Twitter, subscribe on Instagram, and on our
follow us
YouTube
on Facebook,
channel.
and I think that's all of them.
I think we got them all.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you very much.